This is The Brain, and you're listening to the Geekcast Radio Network. Yes, Chief Quimby here, and your assignment is to listen to Tooncast.
Chief, mate, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
The Pinky and the Brain. Yes, Pinky and the Brain. One is a genius, the other's insane. They're laboratory mice. Their genes have been spliced. They're Pinky and the Brain. Brain, 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 brain. Before each night is done, their plan will be unfurled by the dawning of the sun. They'll take over the world. They're Pinky and the Brain. Yes, Pinky and the Brain. Their twilight campaign is easy to explain. To prove their mousy worth, they'll overthrow the earth. They're Pinky and the Brain. Brain, 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 brain.
Hello and welcome to Tooncast. This is the special interview. We've only done two interviews so far on Tooncast. This will be the third one. Because episode 50 is coming up, I wanted to get one of the guys who voiced Chief Quimby. And at first I thought this guy had voiced Chief Quimby from the beginning. Unfortunately, that's not the case. However, we have the huge privilege coming up here in a few minutes. Kevin and I. Kevin's here. Hello, Kevin. Yeah.
Hello.
Whatever. To interview Maurice LaMarche, the voice of the Brain from Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. He's also done Mortimer Mouse from the House of Mouse. He did Salem on Sabrina the Teenage Witch. He's done a whole bunch of characters. He did Egon from the Real Ghostbusters. I meant to get a clip from him for that, but I forgot about it. So yeah, this will be a huge privilege for me anyway. I think this is, the 5th or 6th voice actor interview I've done? I don't remember anymore.
This is incredible.
Yes, this is Kevin's second interview.
Yeah, I mean, and this is like good. I don't know. I don't even know how to speak on this one.
yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
So, I mean, the first interview we did was incredible, but at the same time, a little easier because, you know, obviously Larry Kenney, as great of a voice actor as he is, just didn't have as long of a career or hasn't done as many things as today's.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Larry Kenney, and the thing with majority of the interviews that I've tried to get outside of this interview and the Tara Strong interview that Jenny C. and I did, they're specific to the show of whatever, like over on Beast Unleashed with the David Kay and Gary Chalk interviews. Those are, you know, specific characters for that specific show. Same thing with Larry Kenney. We mainly got it for Lion-O, Sonny the Cocoa Puffs Bird, Count Chocula, stuff like that. Whereas the Tara Strong interview and this interview with Mr. LaMarche, they just have wide-scoping careers and wide-scoping things they've done. They're not, I hate to say typecast, but they're not typecast as one role, even though most people will know Maurice LaMarche as Brain from Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. He's done a lot of stuff.
Right.
So yeah, that's what you're going to hear next here on the Tooncast special interview of Maurice LaMarche.
The Brain here. I like listening to Tooncast while trying to take over the world.
Hello everyone, this is Michael Blanchard, and I'm joined with my Tooncast co-host Kevin Thompson, who also is a administrator over at BehindTheVoiceActors.com. Today we have the super awesome privilege to interview Maurice LaMarche. Yes, that's right. The Brain from Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain is on the line with us. Hello, sir.
Indeed I am, Michael. And I am here to help you and Kevin take over podcasting.
I wish.
Yeah.
So how have you been, Maurice?
I've been great. I've been doing the new season of Futurama. 26 new episodes in production right now, and we're just coming into the home stretch. We have about 7 more to go, and those will be 2 seasons on Comedy Central. So we're really thrilled to be back, and they're half-hour episodes. the original format that the show, people came to know the show in. And I think they're the best shows we've ever done. I know everybody says, oh, these are the best shows we've ever done. But these really are the best shows we've ever done. And most people don't say it in that voice either. They don't go, oh, these are the best shows we've ever done. They use their own voice. But when I use my own voice, I'm telling you the absolute truth. The episodes that we've got now are like, the show was hitting its peak in season 4, and finding its emotional core, and we're doing shows that had a lot of heart to them, and we kind of pick up where that left off, and we've got episodes that are kind of on the level of Luck of the Fryish and Jurassic Park, episodes that'll leave you a little tear in your eye and a lump in your throat, and we've got some super hilarious ones as well. It's just there's not a bad one in the bunch. It's really great.
Very cool. Obviously, we are not the first people to interview you on the internet, as you did an interview about a year ago with our buddies from This Week in Geek. So we are going to try our best to avoid asking any of the same questions that they ask. Having said that, just to get us started, can you give us a quick summary of your upbringing and how you became a voice actor?
I'm from Canada, where it's very, very cold, and I think a lot of Canadian kids, we kind of shuddered in just based on our long Canadian winters, and as such, you just kind of bundled up, got home from school, and just went down to the basement and watched TV until the grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup were ready for dinner, and so I was like a TV magnet as a kid. I just kind of sucked it all in and regurgitated it out, I loved cartoons, and began to do various characters. And the first cartoon voice I ever did was oh goodness, I know his name too. Maybe you guys know the character's name. It just won't come to me right now. The baby vulture in the Bugs Bunny cartoon.
No.
I'm bringing home a baby, Bumblebee.
It's Buzzard something. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly. So he's he was like one of the first, right alongside the "Which way did he go, George? Which way did he go?"
I love that.
So the first thing I ever did in my kindergarten was the Mel Blanc dumb guy voices, and little by little built my repertoire from there, and all through school was kind of, they were always trying to figure out what's wrong with me. What is wrong with that kid? He won't stop doing the voices in school. And, I just saw it as, if you're laughing at me, you can't be mad at me. So I was always, putting on a little show no matter where I was. And, when I finally got out of high school, and I notice I said got out of, not graduated, because they very kindly showed me the door and said, not only have you not attended enough classes, but we can just see your heart isn't in this. You come here so that you can be down in the cafeteria or in the courtyard of the schoolyard and hold forth and have an audience. We want to encourage you to go on into your show business career, and call us when you're playing Vegas. So they kind of cut me loose in the middle of 12th grade, and I immediately went down to a place called Yuck Yuck's Comedy Club in Toronto, where they were doing, it was the first stand-up comedy club in Canada, and it was kind of revolutionary because Canadians just didn't do stand-up comedy. And I was kind of like in the first wave of Canadian comics like Howie Mandel and Jim Carrey and Mike McDonald and Norm Macdonald that, in the late 1970s, early 1980s began to emerge from Canada. And, in that time, I'd written myself a little 5-minute high school variety night stand-up act along with the help of a couple of friends, and I kind of, broke that out and then began to build on that. And was a stand-up comic touring with Rodney Dangerfield and the Pointer Sisters and Temptations and Four Tops and David Sanborn. And, while I was doing that, this little side road kind of opened up of voiceovers. The voiceover agent at my agency, which just handled me for variety, saw me and went, you could probably make a little extra money doing cartoons. And I was like, okay. I was, I had my eye on the big prize getting myself a sitcom, et cetera, and I really was, I'd read the Freddie Prinze story in Playboy magazine, Goodnight Sweet Prinze, and went, well, that's the blueprint for my career. Go down to L.A., become a stand-up comic, do the Tonight Show once, have Johnny love me, and get my own sitcom. That's how you do it. And so, the cartoon thing was not something that I was really shooting for, and I think that's part of the reason it happened for me, because it wasn't my be-all and end-all goal, so I just kind of zenned into it. And it took a little while, but I eventually ended up, doing a couple of little episodes of The Littles, and Wolf Rock TV, which was Wolfman Jack, which was kind of cool. It was my first job in LA was Wolfman Jack, and then right into The Chief from Inspector Gadget. They moved the show. They'd done 65 in Canada, and then they moved the show down here, and because Don Adams wanted to come back, he was done with his supermarket show in Canada, and he came back down here, and so we did the last 22 episodes down here. And from that came Ghostbusters from the same company, Deke Enterprises, and this lady Marcia Goodman, who was the casting director, who just got in my corner right away, and I really kind of owed her my career. And it kind of snowballed from there. There's the Reader's Digest version, anyway.
Very cool.
Excellent. In the 3 decades you've been working as a voice actor, are there currently or have there ever been certain animation companies or production studios that you just prefer to work for, or that have just been a great experience for you?
I prefer to work for the ones that hire me, that like me. They're I'm grateful to all of them. I've worked for all the major studios, but I would be I would be disingenuous if I didn't say that I had a tremendous time at Warner Brothers. That little renaissance that they had in between 1992 and 98, with the actual funny cartoons, as we like to think of them, the Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, Tasmania, which is kind of the unsung Warner Brothers show that came out during that period, the non-Spielbergian one, Hysteria. A lot of those shows were just kind of it became like a big Warner Brothers family. So I had a tremendous time with that, and getting to become Brain, and it was great. It was just a great time because you knew you were working a couple of times a week, which for an actor, to know you've got 2 and 3 days of work during a work week, it almost became like a regular job. It was it threw me off a bit when it stopped. But to have that much work and have that kind of work for 6 years was a real gift, and it was great. And to get to work with Rob Paulson and work almost as a real life comedy team, except that you don't see us, you only hear us, and there are these drawings that move. But to get to create that relationship, both the relationship with Rob the actor and the relationship that Brain had with Pinky, and have that evolve and grow, was a privilege that's rare, for many actors. I was very, very lucky. It was a great time.
Yeah. If you could still be working on any one show that you have worked on in the past, which show would it be?
Well, it's almost an embarrassment of riches because I've gotten to come back, in Futurama, and God knows I'm hoping and praying that just goes on for, almost as many seasons as The Simpsons. I mean, that's a phenom that happened. But if we can go to half as many seasons as The Simpsons have had, that would be like more than one should dare to ask for. But because that's already happened, that goes on the shelf of miracles that have happened. So I guess if I could again, restart anything, it would be Pinky and the Brain.
Yeah.
And I keep hoping against hope somebody somewhere is going to say, it's time for Pinky and the Brain, the motion picture, and it's time to do it with the original 2 guys.
That would be
a
awesome.
hard problem. Somebody could decide it and then go, but instead of the two guys that did it for the TV show, we're going to have to cast celebrities, you know. And
that's when the internet comes in.
Yeah, they'll cast, you know, John Hamm and Russell.
We wouldn't let them do that.
What's the British Russell? I get them all confused.
Russell Crowe.
No, the other. Oh, Russell Crowe's an interesting choice for Pinky. Actually, I was thinking of the one that's going to play Arthur.
I don't know.
It doesn't need to be remade. Russell Brand, I think it is. But talk about a movie that doesn't need to be remade. Arthur, there's the perfect film.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pinky and the Brain. Boy, I would love to see that come back in some form or another. It's just pure fun to do that show.
In general, what are some of the other favorites and least favorite shows you have ever worked on?
Well, I had a particular trouble with this show called The Popples. It was a show that was about, you know, those toys called Popples that were very popular in the mid-'80s,
Mm-hmm.
based on the principle of, you know, a pair of socks, and you know, fold them into each other and kind of roll them up.
I remember those.
Yeah, and I had to play a character named PC Popple. I don't know what the hell PC stood for, but it was before political correctness, but this show is about as politically correct as you could get. And he was a high-pitched character who had a really cute voice. And I tell you, to try to crank out that level of cuteness from this, you know, 6-foot-tall, you know, barely thought-out Canadian, was really, it was a strain. And, you know, I'm a natural tenor bordering on baritone. And, you know, I don't go to that range very easily. So the voice would crack, and then we'd have to go back, and I'd have to redo lines over and over again because it doesn't sound cute enough. And when I finally get it there, they go, "Well, now you sound like you're being cynical about being cute." And I'd be like, "I am." And so, you know, and the show was really written to 4-year-olds, so it was not the easiest work experience, but we had a great time having, you know, taking the mickey out of, you know, of being so cute and yet, you know, being adults and knowing that we have darker impulses. But so that moment was a little tough. I you know, and there was you know, the rest of them have all been pretty great. You know, I'm always grateful and appreciative of any job I get. You know, because the natural state of the actor is to be kind of sitting there looking at the phone, going, "Ring, goddammit, ring." Have an almost you know, I would say I've started working steadily. I know I have credits that precede 1985, but you know, the run really started with Inspector Gadget in 1985 and truly hasn't stopped since. I had a little tiny bumpy period at the beginning of last year, but other than that, it really has not stopped in 25 years. So for me to, you know, cast aspersions on any show, of course some shows have been much more fun than others, but you know, for me to cast aspersions on a show, and you know, I mean, I had the honor of being in the very last, I think, episode of the Transformers. And I know I gave an interview once where, it was a long time ago, where I just made an offhand remark about how many takes that particular director wanted. And it's kind of got blown out of proportion. It's kind of followed me around, and we even got back to the director that I'd said this. And I need to say that, you know, that's the way that director worked, and I needed to be more respectful of his process. And I think I gave that interview at a younger time in my life. So, you know, even on that Transformers episode, you know, it's just great to be part of the Transformers lore, you know, being in the very last episode.
Yeah, that was probably Wally Burr.
That was Wally Burr. And
Wally Burr is, well, the reputation I know him by is he was a very huge stickler back in those days of doing multiple takes.
Well, you know, and if that's his process, then that's his process. You know,
yeah.
I needed to, you know, perhaps understand that there are directors that work many different ways, and I'm there, I'm drawing a check, and if, he wants me to do it while hanging from gravity inversion boots, then that's the way I'm going to do it. Obviously, I'm going to have triple scale for that, but nonetheless, I'm being paid, and, I'm going to give him the performance he wants. So I may have been a little unfair to him in the previous interview, and if I can use this as a forum to extend the olive branch of an apology, I hope you guys don't mind if I do.
There you go.
They've all been great, To work is great. For an actor, to work is fantastic.
Right.
And I've been usually privileged to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Has there ever been a role that you turned down that you wish you wouldn't have?
That I wish I wouldn't have? No. No, there were a couple of things that in the past, there was one, there was a particularly sacrilegious cartoon for the internet that I passed on, and I have no regrets about passing on. First of all, it didn't become anything. And I just now turned down the chance to read for something that I won't talk it up. I won't talk it up or down because it's still in development, and apart from legal concerns, it's it's also not fair to do to
right.
It was a show that probably had the most toilet humor of any show I've ever. I don't mind the odd fart joke, but this was a show that was based completely on farts and poop and pee.
Wow.
It's like I just want to.
Sounds like a Kevin Smith project.
Anyway, I excuse myself from the opportunity.
Yes. What type of characters do you like playing better? Good guys, bad guys, serious characters, or funny characters?
Well, it depends. I mean, I rarely divide them. When I'm playing a villain character, I don't think of myself as a villain.
Right.
And villains don't think of themselves as villains. Hitler thought he was doing, a good thing. You can't play a villain as though he's a bad guy. I'm going to go out and do bad today. Let me twirl my mustache. You play the villain as though he's really doing what's best, but people just don't understand. And I brought that to Brain, not to keep going back to Pinky and the Brain, but it is a glaring example. Characters would have been very easy to play evil. But I always thought Brain just thought he should run the world because he'd do a much better job than the knuckleheads who are doing it. And I don't think I'm wrong about that, actually. Both in my process and in the way the world is running right now.
Yeah.
I think a 2-inch tall lab mouse with an IQ of 210 could probably do a better job than everybody that's running the world at this moment. But so I like to play characters that have some depth. I like to play characters that have really terrific jokes that are true to their character. Curmudgeonly characters are fun to play. I like to play characters like that are muttering things under their breath. And those are fun. I like Kif. Kif from Futurama is just he's every one of us who's ever been in a beleaguered position, whether it's stuck in a job we hate with a boss that isn't nowhere near as smart as we are, or stuck in a marriage with a domineering spouse. That sigh is just everybody can relate to that feeling of, So I love playing that character, and I always try to play it kind of real,
Yeah, I'm a huge Looney Tunes fan. How do you feel about I would say not really taking over, but doing a newer version of, say, Yosemite Sam, Pepe Le Pew, Foghorn Leghorn? Well,
at different times I've taken a crack at those characters. I've kind of been the default Yosemite Sam for most of Warner Brothers' productions since Mel died, and except for, of course, the big films, in which case they went with somebody else. But I listen back to my Yosemite Sam, and of course I go, well, it's not Mel, but it's my best shot, and I really rip myself apart for it, which I know from reading Mel's autobiography that he always demanded that Yosemite Sam be voiced on Friday so that he had the weekend to recover.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to do Yosemite Sam is to push as hard as you can, push that character out of you as hard as you can. And, there's times I get close, but, I'm not Mel and no, none of the replacement actors are, but we all do what we do as a tribute, as
oh, yeah.
And yet, I just think it's the most telling thing that it takes, 7 of us to do the characters that one Mel did?
Yeah.
At any given time, there's 7 of us in the studio. Bob Bergen, of course, does Porky perfectly. Tweety perfectly.
Yeah.
Joe Lasky does Tweety also perfectly. I think he needs to be pitched up just slightly, but so did Mel. Lasky's Daffy Duck is almost indistinguishable from Mel's original. Billy's Bugs Bunny, first rate, but Jeff Bergman's Bugs Bunny, also first rate. His Daffy Duck, also first rate. So, I think that, there's a lot of guys that can do the voice print, but Mel had the timing. He had those years in radio working alongside Jack Benny, and the timing of a Mel Blanc is something that, it takes 2 lifetimes. So, I know for me, I'm always pushing to get it a little better and a little closer, and really play the character instead of the voice. So, we'll see. There is a new Looney Tunes show that's supposed to be out next year, and it's got a very sitcom-y feel to it. But I'm hoping that it's all that we all hope it'll be. Certainly I'll come up with the task.
In one of our previous Tooncast episodes, we focused on a cartoon that obviously called Captain Planet. On Captain Planet, they seem to have made a concerted effort to bring in big-name Hollywood stars to do most of the villains originally. And then it seemed like after one season, they ditched that effort, and we'll say that they decided instead to go with real voice actors like yourself for some of those roles. Can you give us any insight into what was going on there, or what your opinions of screen actors coming in and doing voice work in general is?
Well, acting is acting, so I never say, hey, big screen actors, stay out of our sandblocks. You've got that big feature film thing going on over there where you're making millions of dollars. We need to come in and scale for it. There's a few actors that get very territorial over our work, a few voice actors. I know Tony Jay, God rest his soul, was very vocal about that. But, I feel that, if those guys want to act in cartoons, great. However, the problem becomes one of scheduling. And, realistically, someone like Jeff Goldblum, who, especially at the time, had a major feature film career going on. Yes, he wanted to lend his name to this terrific effort to do an environmental cartoon to raise awareness of the upcoming generation of the environment. And I think that was what motivated a lot of people. It motivated Meg Ryan and Dean Stockwell. And Tom Cruise was the original voice of Captain Planet.
Right.
And they'd get a film, and then they weren't available for recording sessions. So, and that was the case with Goldblum, who I actually know, kind of personally, and with a mutual friend and Ed Begley Jr. And Jeff had, he'd gotten one of his many film projects. I think it was actually Jurassic, and he went off to do it. So, Marcia Goodman, once again, Deke Enterprises, knowing that I'm, a pretty good satellite guy, asked me if I could come in and try and approximate Goldblum, and I did. And so I was verminous scum for the rest of the run. And then Dean Stockwell fell out, so I did Duke Nukem, and he had just his scheduling conflict with Quantum Leap. So it's always a nice idea, and that might be why a lot of the big screen actors tend to end up not in the day-to-day cartoons, but they'll take a feature film, where they do the production schedule is more flexible, and they can get them at nights and that type of thing, and they're taking 2 years to make the thing instead of 6 months. And that's, I think, why we see a lot of them doing the big screen cartoons. But let's face it, there's a magic to being a cartoon character that only, I hate to sound like I'm crowing, but only a handful of people will get to find out what it's like to see your voice come out of an animated cartoon character. The first time it happened for me was way back in like 1979 for the Canadian company Nelvana Films, and it's called Easter Fever. It was the very first cartoon I ever did. It was a one-shot Easter special, and I voiced like 5 characters, and I saw my voice, come out of these moving lips, and it was like, oh my God, that's the closest thing we have to magic here on, in real life, and it was phenomenal. So, I understand why a Meg Ryan would want to drop everything and be on a cartoon, or any number of big screen people, because
Right.
one thing, it's the one thing they do that they can show their kids.
That's true. Besides co-hosting Tooncast with Mike, I also work, as he said, as an administrator at a website called BehindTheVoiceActors.com, and one of the things we do there is we try to compare different voice actors who have voiced the same characters. Like for let's just say Batman, for example, and there's been dozens of people to do that. So we put up a page where all the people that have done Batman are posted there, and you can listen to all their sound clips and kind of compare them. I was curious, when you take on a role that multiple people have voiced in the past, like you did with Magneto on the Superhero Squad show, or like you said with some of the Looney Tunes characters, even Destro from G.I. Joe, do you go back before you do that audition or before you do that role and listen to other people's representations of that character, or do you prefer to kind of go on it without hearing those things?
Well, with Destro, and actually, I went on your website, I think yesterday or the day before yesterday, and actually commented as myself that I like Arthur Burghart's Destro the best of the 4 that you had up there. Is that you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Mike before we aired this. I was like, do you think that was actually him that made that comment?
That was actually me that made that comment, yes.
That's awesome.
I actually do, I actually do go on 2 websites and make comments as myself, and nobody ever believes that a man of my stature would have the time, but I do, and I make the time. So no, that was me commenting, and I think Burghart's is the best. But there was only Burghart when I stepped into that part, and that was again a question of the show changing production companies. Deke Enterprises took it over and was doing it with mostly Canadians, and being Canadian, I qualified as Canadian content. But they were sure they needed Destro to be as close to the original as possible. So I did my best. I mean, Arthur is about 3 inches taller than me. He's a huge man, and he's got just an amazing set of pipes. But so I didn't, the subsequent Destros, I have not seen those incarnations except on your website. But it seems to me they took a couple of more liberties with the character. Whereas I was really trying to keep it close to Arthur, and they wanted me to keep it close to Arthur. In a case like Magneto, I'd never heard the previous incarnations, and they said they were going very comedic with Superhero Squad. So I just, I don't know, I was kind of doing, very much in my own register, but with, maybe just a soupçon of Orson Wellesian diction and brought in that kind of annoyed curmudgeonly note, and just brought my own thing. I didn't try to do Ian McKellen or anything like that. So it just depends. With Gadget, when I took over the role of Gadget, they knew they wanted as close to Don as possible. And when we did Gadget and the Gadgetinis up in Vancouver, Don was already retired. He'd broken his hip. Getting around was very difficult for him, and I think as a small, he was also suffering from a little bit of emphysema and really couldn't get the big Gadget, high pitched kind of thing that had made his career. As first as Seymour Glithouse detective on the Bill Dana show, and Maxwell Smart, and then Inspector Gadget. So when it came time to do Gadget and the Gadgetinis, he turned it down and said, "Just get Mo to do it. He does me better than I do now." So with his blessing, I took over the part of Inspector Gadget. But that was an impression I'd been doing since high school anyway, so I was fairly practiced at it. And when I watch some of the Gadget and Gadgetini stuff now on YouTube, I go, "That's pretty good." I pat myself on the back for that one. I'm kind of proud of.
Every voice actor seems to have a method for remembering which of their voices go with which characters, especially if they're on a show where they voice a good deal of characters, like you did on Tiny Toons and Futurama and other shows. How do you keep all your voices straight? How do you keep them all in line?
Medication.
Are you, Mr. LaMarche, are you admitting that the brain is actually on medication?
Yes. No, brain is, the strongest thing brain's on is a baby aspirin. No, I truthfully, I don't know why. It's something that just kind of comes easily to me. I tell you, it's much easier for me if I have reference. I mean, if I've got copies of the show at home or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I can usually make an association with, if I have a picture of the character and I've watched the cartoon, well, then I associate that voice with that guy, and just show me the picture, and I can go. Mm-hmm. Now it's even easier though with YouTube. I mean, I just look stuff up. Everything I've ever done I can just find it on YouTube, and so I have trouble remembering what Dr. Splits sounded like in Captain Simeon and the Space Monkeys. Look at it. And, and talk about, now there's a show that never got its due. I don't know if you guys remember Captain Simeon and the Space.
I do, yeah.
Really well-written show, good science fiction, great cast. I mean, it was cast from, at the time, Babylon 5 was a hot show. Half the cast was from Babylon 5, the other half was from Star Trek The Next Generation. And then we had Malcolm McDowell, who was, Clockwork Orange, and David Warner, who'd been in Time After Time with Malcolm. And, it's just astounding. And here I was, just going, well, what am I doing with all these great sci-fi guys, that was a show created by Gordon Bressak, and written by him. He wrote all 13 episodes. And just, I never understood why it didn't catch on. I guess it must have been a distribution thing, because it was a terrific show.
When I was going down the list of your credits, I think one of the things that really jumped out at me more than anything else was that you voiced Salem the Cat from Sabrina the Animated Series.
Yes, yeah. That was without Nick Bakay's blessing, unfortunately. But again, it was a question of the show going Canadian, and they needed Canadian. There's a certain thing that they have called CanCon, Canadian content. So Deke being a Canadian signatory, you have to have a certain number of actors in your production be Canadian. So, unfortunately, they were just not able to. Weren't able to work Nick in, and they also cut. I don't know what else may have happened, but Nick said, "You can't do me exactly," or I'll sue or whatever. So I did kind of ran him through the transporter or the fly chamber with Maurice the Cat, and the character that it was different, but he was still kind of sly and wry and I hope it worked.
Yeah.
I hope it did. And I was never, trying to take. I certainly wasn't trying to undercut Nick, because
right. I
won't do that. If I know an actor's holding out for more money, I will not audition for the job. I was the first actor to turn down the opportunity to audition for The Simpsons back when they were trying to recast that in the late '90s. Mm-hmm. And before they even put out the word, they just came to my agent direct and said, "Would Mo like to audition for such and such parts?" And I just said, "No, those are those actors' parts. No, I won't even try for it." And then they put out a general audition, but I just won't do it. So in the case of Nick Bakay and Salem, it was just that he couldn't do it. He wasn't technically allowed to, and so they flew me up to Vancouver and did the entire series in 3 weeks.
Can you reveal any behind-the-scenes moments during Animaniacs or Pinky and the Brain or any of the other shows that you've done?
Yes, we all worked naked.
It's funny you mention that, because Kevin and I were debating on the whole question of do voice actors prefer, like most of the voice actors we've interviewed on our podcasting network here, some of them have also done live action, and we've often asked them, do you prefer live action or the voice acting? And most of them, their answer is the voice acting, because you can pretty much show up however. You don't have to look professional. It's pretty much a come as you are gig.
Oh yeah, and it's also purely about acting. It's there's no hair, lighting, makeup. There's a minimum of sitting around and waiting, which is the really tough part of when you're doing the on-camera gig. It's the amount of waiting you've got to do.
Yeah.
Get there and sit in your trailer for 6 hours until they're ready for your shot.
Right.
With a cartoon, it's like you get there,
you do it and you go home.
Your lines in the script, sit down or stand up, depending on how you like to work, behind the microphone, and we will. And you're usually done with the average cartoon within 2 hours.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes stuff. I wish I had something juicy for you. Everybody loved everybody. We all had a great time. There really wasn't much intrigue or there were no feuds or fights or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was really just seeing a bunch of people really knowing that they had the coolest gig in show business going at the time.
Yeah.
And being grateful to show up. I mean, getting to work with Tress MacNeille and Jess Harnell and Rob Paulson and Jeff Bennett, and just these sweethearts of people that are just loaded with talent. I just hope it always showed that I knew how lucky I was.
Yeah. Staying on the topic of Tiny Toons and Animaniacs, there have been multiple reports on the internet citing that Charlie Adler left Tiny Toons because he was angry at the fact that actors like Jess Harnell, Rob Paulson, and yourself were given roles on Animaniacs and he wasn't. To your knowledge, is there any truth to these reports, or is it just the internet being unreliable?
To my knowledge, the deal is I have no knowledge of why Charlie left Tiny Toons.
Okay.
So I certainly hope it wasn't that. I know that I'm not even sure the show's dovetailed all that much. So I don't know the reason behind Charlie's leaving Tiny Toons. I know that certainly John Kassir was Buster Bunny and did the yeoman's job on it. And he stepped into it fairly well. But I don't know the reason behind it. I assumed it was perhaps some kind of contract negotiation.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I know that certainly Charlie hasn't hurt for it. He's one of the most working directors in animation right now, and he still has his hand in acting. And Cow and Chicken is just a tour de force. I mean, he's playing all three characters, talking about just pages and pages of Charlie talking to himself, and he's genius at it. So
wow,
it's still a classic. Cow Chicken and the Red Guy. I mean, come on.
in the thousands of right. In the thousands of recordings you've done over your career, can you remember any funny mistakes someone made or practical jokes someone pulled while in the studio that you witnessed or were a party to?
Well, I do remember there was an episode of Pinky and the Brain. Sorry to keep going back to it, but so-called Pinky and the Brain called You Said a Mouseful that Gordon Bresack wrote as an all-tongue twister episode. Now, add to the idea that it's an all-tongue twister episode the casting of John Machida?
John Machida, yeah.
John Machida, thank you. The fast-talking guy from the FedEx commercials. So now we're doing an all-tongue twister script with the fastest-talking man in show business. So there were so many opportunities. I mean, the kicky sack plucker, the kicky sack khaki sack plucker. I mean, you just use your imagination to see where that went during missed takes. Having to say words like that and Peggy Babcock and things like that. I mean, at one point I got so frustrated I actually just excuse me. 1 second. And I got up from my chair and walked calmly out of the studio and walked into the control room and stepped behind Andrea Romano, who was our director, and there was Gordon Bresack. He was just enjoying the torture so much, and I just punched him in the arm, like you would to a little brother, when you just walk by and slug your little brother in the arm.
Yeah.
And then walked back and calmly took my seat and resumed, tripping over my tongue. But at that point, I was so frustrated, I just had to punch him. I had to slug him in the arm. And I really felt to this day. And I think at one point I just yelled out, "I hate you, Gordon Bresack!"
What's the most bizarre or humorous, or do you have any type of audition that's memorable for some reason that you did?
Ooh, memorable audition.
Or the weirdest audition you ever went to?
Well, I tell you, I when I auditioned for the Critic, it was they informed me they'd be videotaping me, and I didn't feel particularly crazy about that idea. I didn't like that. I like to be completely free, but I dressed up a little bit to go in to the audition, and wore a sport coat and a very nice shirt, and treated it almost as stand-up. And that was the only way I got through the audition. And as it turned out, Mike Reese and Al Jean used to come down and see a bunch of comics at the Comedy Store, and I was their favorite impressionist. So it was kind of fitting that I treated it as a stand-up gig, because it sort of solidified me in their brains. But that was the only one. The idea that I was being videotaped for a voiceover. I think I even kind of ribbed them about it from behind the microphone, as it were. So, but other than that, no, I don't think I've ever really had to do anything too bizarre in voiceover.
You've kind of already said that you go back and watch. You go back and you look up on YouTube some of the stuff that you've done. As you were doing it, say like with Animaniacs or Pinky and the Brain or whatever, did you ever go back and see what your voice sounded like with the character as you were doing the show?
Well, I mean, obviously with Pinky and the Brain, we were very excited. To work with Animaniacs when Pinky and the Brain was part of it, we were just very excited because we knew we were onto something. We knew we were doing a really funny cartoon show. I mean, people, up to that point, cartoons were, basically half-hour-long commercials for toy lines, and here we had shows that were, Spielberg's vision was to bring back cartoons funny on the level of Bugs Bunny and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, and Tiny Toons was the first shot at that, and then he took it further with Animaniacs, who were completely original characters. Tiny Toons were miniature versions of the classic characters.
Mm-hmm.
Hampton Pig was,
Porky
Pigs, etc., etc. So this was, an entire universe that would never cross over with the Tiny Toons universe, and we just said, we knew we had to see this from scratch. So yeah, I actually became an ardent taper of back in the days when people actually used videotape in their homes,
mm-hmm.
of Animaniacs, and then when Pinky and the Brain became its own thing, it was really a thrill. So I revisited that. Ghostbusters has recently come out on DVD.
Yep.
The last couple of years, so it's been fun to watch those remastered and see, the adventures of Venkman and Stantz and Spengler, as Lorenzo Music and Arsenio Hall and I played them, and the great Frank Welker. So yeah, I mean, I do go back and look, and I can hear sometimes the inexperience in the earlier stuff that I do, and
mm-hmm.
You're lucky you watch yourself grow. I mean, the common wisdom now is that if you put in 10,000 hours, Malcolm Gladwell's theory of 10,000 hours is what leads you to be, expert in something. And I think I'm on my 9,500th hour now. So I've only got 500 more hours of animated cartooning to go, and I'll be good at it.
Do you prefer working, like, as far as voice recordings, as far as voiceovers, do you prefer, like, I hate to call it this, but phoning it in, or do you prefer working with the ensemble cast, all the castmates together?
Oh, definitely, I like working with castmates.
Yeah.
You play the relationships much more proficiently when you actually got somebody to have a relationship with.
Did you and sorry to interrupt you. Did you, on that same note, did you and Rob ever just do Pinky and Brain back and forth off air? Like a general conversation?
Oh, we'll mess around a little bit. We still do shows. We still end up on various cartoon shows together. We just recently on Back to the Barnyard and Cat Scratch. Mm-hmm. So we'll throw each other a little Pinky and the Brain, one-liner here and there. But actually, our favorite thing to do is just talk to each other in big, sloppy Cockney accents like this. Hello, how are you? You wake up. Oh, I'm fine. You and I can't. The kind of language we go into, but Or we talk to each other in the broken English of the French Canadian there, because he is from Detroit, or Detroit, which is the only part of the United States that's north of Canada. And so he knows a lot of French Canadian there. So we talk to each other like this whenever we talk on the phone there.
Which voice actors did you most look up to when you were first starting, and which voice actors do you still look up to that are still around today?
Well, of course, Mel Blanc.
Yeah.
And loved Lorenzo music, and had the privilege of working with him on Ghostbusters. Welker, I didn't know how much I loved Welker until I met Welker and realized that he was so many characters that I knew, I'm a few years younger than him, so I was on the other side of the adolescent line while he was a working actor. Even though now, we're both gray-haired guys, but so Frank Welker was a hero, and I got the best education in the world because the first job I was on, Gadget, and then Ghostbusters, I sat right next to Frank. So I just watched Frank, and Frank taught me stuff, and he certainly taught me a ton about professionalism, half of which, of course, I've never been able to integrate, into my actual career, like showing up on time. But he showed me how to move, he showed me how to turn script silently. There's a trick to actually being able to keep going, so you don't have to break the action because the 2 pages you've opened out. Well, we're done with those now, so now we have to stop. Otherwise, the whole thing just sounds like crinkle, crinkle, crinkle. It's a big crinkle fest.
Mm-hmm.
He taught me how to do it, so you could actually do a 5-page run without stopping. And just to watch him and just learn by doing. He was great. So he's kind of and Don, from his days as Tennessee Tuxedo, he was another guy I got to work on.
I love Tennessee Tuxedo.
Yep, me too.
Which voice actors are you closest friends with in real life?
In real life, I'm very close to Rob Paulson, and I'm very close to Billy West. Tress MacNeille is a dear friend, and we'll actually socialize and hang out. And Jeff Bennett. Jeff Bennett's a good friend. I love working with just about everybody I work with, but these are people who actually call up on the phone, say how you doing, and
right.
Usually grab a bite and that type of thing. And it's always fun when we do that.
Are there any voiceover people that you haven't worked with yet that you want to that are still around?
Well, I missed working with Mel Blanc by 10 minutes once. Unfortunately, he was doing his lines early, and when I was doing an episode of Heathcliff, and unfortunately it was like he just wanted to go in and get his lines out, and he was towards the end of his life. He had bad emphysema, and yet he wore an oxygen tank, and yet he still smoked in the studio, which is rather bizarre. They were worried about him just blowing up, but he insisted. So I thought I was going to get to work with Mel, but I just picked up the lines later. So there was only 1 or 2 lines. So I missed meeting him, and I was sorry about that. In terms of voice actors, I know it's going to hit me when I hang up, but if John Cleese were to ever deign to do a cartoon, he's like the dream guy, like the dream actor. I'd like to just shake his hand and work with him. I've worked with Eric Idle on Pinky and the Brain, and that was a thrill too. But Cleese is my all-time comedy idol, so it would be tremendous to work with him.
I think I already know the answer to this based on some of the other answers, but I got to ask these 2 questions anyway. Besides yourself, who is the most talented voice actor of all time, in your opinion?
Besides myself, are you kidding me? I'm way down there on the list, man.
I just didn't want to give you an easy answer.
I'm in awe of Billy West. I'm in awe of D. Bradley Baker. I stand still. I still stand in complete respect and reverence of Frank Welker's talent. Oh God, there's just, there's lots of people in front of me. I've got my own little niche, and I'm grateful for it. But those guys' range is unbelievable. What Rob Paulson can do with a song, in one take is phenomenal. Jess Harnell and Tress MacNeille to me is, the female version of all of them rolled into one. There's nothing Tress can't do, and she does everything she does is hilariously funny. And if I may just pipe up about unsung heroes and kind of newcomers on the scene of Dave Herman to me is unbelievable. Who's on our show, Futurama's Scruffy Panther and Roberto. I mean, Dave Herman. Everything Dave Herman does vibrates and funny. And of course DiMaggio. Just as Bender, he's taken that character and made it break out. And Phil LaMarche, who was brilliant. So I just take my hat off to the entire rest of the cast of Futurama. So. There's lots of folks out there that I think are just absolutely phenomenal. And I like me too. I really like me.
Okay, you've kind of answered both of... Kevin asked that first question, and basically the second question was, the voice actor is still working today, so you kind of answered those both already. I don't know where I saw this. It might have... I think it was on the Animaniacs, one of the Animaniacs DVD special features. Can you tell us the Ray Liotta story about getting the voice for Squitz?
Getting the voice. Well, I mean, it was obviously it was a takeoff on Goodfellas. And, I was supposed to do the character of Ray Liotta. I was like, how did I get saddled with the least doable, the least imitatable guy?
Yeah.
Because De Niro, John Mariano had him down perfectly, and Chick Venera already sounds like Joe Pesci anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just Chick, But I found myself out for dinner with my then wife, now my estranged wife, but we're still very good friends. And who was at the next table but Ray Liotta? And he was on I believe his second or third date with the woman who's now his wife. And he was I noticed him and I was like, okay, cool, it's Ray Liotta. Isn't that funny that I'm supposed to be doing him in a cartoon day after tomorrow? But in those days they allowed you to smoke in restaurants, but he was polite enough to go, excuse me, do you mind if I light this up? Do you mind if I smoke? And I said, no, sure, please, go ahead. And we, I said, at the time I was an inveterate cigar smoker. I've since given it up. But, we talked about cigars, and we just had it ended up we almost pushed the tables together and had like a little foursome date. And by the end of the evening, I kind of picked up enough nuances of his that I knew I would be able to go in there and at least do an approximation of his voice.
Awesome.
Very nice guy, extremely nice guy.
Yeah.
And they made such a cute couple. I was glad to see they stayed together. I hope they're still together. I haven't seen them in ages, but it was their third date.
Stunt burping.
I'm afraid I'm paid very big money for stunt burping, my friend. Although my brother Jason works cheaper than I do. He'll do it for free, and he does it better. It's funny, I have two brothers, Jason and Paul. Jason does the stunt burps brilliantly, and my brother Paul does Popeye better than I do, even though I played the part on television. Hey, there was a real throat ripper, actually. Playing Popeye was not... Another show that wasn't easy, but it was such an honor to step into the part that I didn't and don't dare complain about it, but it was not easy to do that voice. Stunt burping came from when, it was originally, I just called it my puke sound. It came from me having I wanted to be a practical joker as a kid, and I bought some plastic vomit in 5th grade, folded it up in my hand, and then I wanted to throw up in class, and I knew I had to make a convincing sound, so I did this just instinctively. I sort of did this, turn my tongue inside out inside my mouth thing to fill out the chambers, and as I dropped the plastic puke, I went mortifying the teachers, and I just thought I was just the greatest. I was the Joker, I was going to make everybody in the room die from laughing, and it was just like instead of that, nobody laughed. They were just terrified of what they saw, and then when he saw that it was plastic puke, he sent me right down to the office. And think I spent the rest of the school year there. But I had discovered this new sound effect, and when it came time for Yakko to burp, I realized it doesn't have to be puking; it can be burping, and we just sampled a bunch of burps.
I so wish Jess Harnell was here right now to say, "Oh, thank you, excuse me."
You know, it's true. But I mean, the way we did that thing was we Rich Stone actually had me burp about 100 times, and in scales. And he placed them after futzing with them so they matched the notes perfectly.
Yeah.
He placed them digitally on a keyboard, on a synthesizer. So the keyboard literally could play a symphony of belches, and so they edited that together, and that became the great Wackarati.
You've been to some of the various Comic-Con fan conventions that have been held over the years. What are your impressions of fan conventions and types of following that some of these shows achieve?
I'm always thrilled to be part of anything like Comic-Con or where this weekend I'll be at on Sunday I'll be at the Anaheim WonderCon. It's great. It gives everybody a chance, people with a common interest, to come together. Gives them a chance to come together and share in their own recollections and their enthusiasms, and we get to meet them and they get to meet us, and to some degree I think they're disappointed to find out we're just humans, but we spritz, we do the voices for them, we bump into them in the lobby, and it's just like for 3 days you know what it's like to be like this rock star. It's like when Superman goes down to the bottle city of Kandor. It's like everybody knows who he is, but he's kind of unique and special when he's outside the bottle. And I guess the inverse of that is it's like for 362 days of the year I'm inside the bottle city of Kandor, and for 3 days I'm outside of it. I'm like a superhero to these people. I don't know. It's sort of weird, but I have a great time, and hopefully, the folks that I get to meet are having a great time too, and we have a lot of fun together.
We only got a handful of questions left, but I was wondering if you could give us a few thoughts of what it was like touring with people like Rodney Dangerfield and George Carlin during your stand-up career. If you could give us a few thoughts on that.
Well, opening for Rodney was, he was just so generous. He was a guy who really believed in young comedians, and he had no fear about us. He didn't feel like, those young guys, they're coming up, they're taking our spot. He was just like, he loved young comics, and, he was responsible for launching so many people that are now, guys that are household names. I mean, he's the first guy to put Seinfeld on. Well, actually, no, Johnny put Seinfeld on first, but he was next. He put him, in the young comedian, second young comedian special. He launched Kinnison, which, was, really changed the face of comedy, and Dice, and, he gave a lot of guys their first shot, including me. And, I've done a couple of Merv Griffins, but it was the first time I was featured as, one of the crop of 7 special young comedians that was burst on the scene. And, going around the country with him was truly an education, Cool. It was great. There was one time we pulled up to one of the venues. I think it was, I can't remember whether it was Latham, New York. Anyway, my name wasn't on the marquee, and Rodney refused to go on until somebody got on a ladder and went out there, with the letters and put my name up under his. And he said, "Man, I tell you, it's tough enough, man. Tough enough being an opening act when they know you're coming out. But let me tell you, I worked dive joints, man, but they didn't know I was the opening act. I'd come out, I'd have to struggle. I don't want him to have to do that. You put a name out there, baby." So he was mad. And sure enough, I looked out, his road manager said, "Take a look," and I opened up the little side stage door, and we saw a guy up there on a cherry picker putting my name up before show times. Yeah, very, very generous. Carl and I only worked with once. He was very nice, but I think he popped his head in maybe a couple times. "A good show, man," and then that was it. But it was a great experience to work the road as an opening act, because you got first-class treatment without any of the responsibility of being the draw. So I had the fancy dressing room with the stocked bar and I almost wanted to get a smoking jacket to receive people then after the show, but it was great. It was really great.
Obviously, there's lots of different types of voice work. Which do you prefer the most out of cartoons, commercials, movies, video games, or anything else?
Well, I mean, each is its own animal. It's so even though you're in all those situations, you're behind a microphone with carpeting on the walls. Each thing is its own thing. I mean, currently I've got the great fortune to be the voice of Lexus right now, and when I'm working with Lexus, it's just me alone in the room, and I'm doing my spots, and I'm talking about a car which I actually believe in. It's a terrific car, so it's a real boon to be able to be behind a product you believe in. But that's different from being in the room with Rob and Tress and Jess and Jeff Bennett and Billy West, and having a great time doing an Animaniacs, or Billy and John and Tress and Phil LaMarche and Lauren Tom doing Futurama. That's acting, that's give and take, and that's improv at times, and character creating, playing three different people in a scene. So that has its own energy. So it's all great stuff. Video games is hard work, I'll say that. I've only done a handful, and I'm very lucky right now. I'm about to go in and do Mr. Freeze for Arkham Asylum 2. And, that one, the games can be a tough gig because you've got, basically three phone books full of pages of dialogue, half of which are you dying in various situations and lengths, levels of pain. So, it can really be a workout for the voice and can really rip you apart. But, then your kid thinks you're cool because you're in the latest Batman game. So,
right,
that's the trade-off.
Yeah. Can you give us a little bit of Mr. Freeze's voice? I haven't had a chance to play Arkham Asylum yet.
He's not in Arkham Asylum. He's only in Arkham Asylum 2.
Oh.
And to tell you the truth, I think contractually I can't. I've got to keep it under wraps. But,
okay. Okay.
Yeah, he's out for blood right now because I can't tell you the situation, but he's actually a somewhat sympathetic character within the framework of the game.
Yeah. What was it like being nominated for multiple Emmy Awards and being nominated and winning an Annie Award?
It gave my life meaning.
Well, at least Brain took over the award world.
No, I'll tell you, it's that thing where they say it's an honor just to be nominated. At the end of the day, it really is an honor just to be nominated because you're being singled out and people are saying, "Hey, good job." It's like a large-scale version of the Employee of the Month award, and it's nice. It's a very nice thing, but you realize, of course, that life goes on whether you win or lose, and the next morning you get up and you go into the bathroom and brush your teeth, and nothing changes whether you win or lose. You're still you, and it's a night of glamour. Although I'll tell you, the first time it happened, I made so much of it that I went on a diet so that I would look good if I did win. And I got a new tuxedo that I tried to shrink myself down into. And when I didn't win, and it went to Linda Ronstadt because it was a variety category. I told the waiter at the governor's ball to just leave the giant tureen of chocolate sauce that was going over the brandied pears. I said, just leave that. It's like the overeating equivalent of leave the bottle for
Yeah.
Just leave the bottle, to the bartender. I was like, just leave the chocolate sauce. And I sat there just spooning chocolate sauce into my mouth going, well, that's what I went on the diet for. Now, here's some liquid happiness. I put back on all the weight I'd lost to fit into the new tuxedo. But, I've since gotten some perspective and realized that it's just a really pretty hunk of tin.
What advice would you give people who are trying to break into voice acting?
Wait until I retire. You've got about 13 more years, then you can break in. Until then, just leave the field alone for me, kids. Okay. It's funny. I get asked this all the time, of course, because I've I'm at that age now where I'm becoming something of of the senior generation of people doing this. I was once the new kid on the block, and it feels like week. So I have friends that are having their kids are now of college age. They'd like to do voiceovers. How do we do it? And there is a set of steps you follow. I can't say though from my own experience that I followed them. My story, as I told you, was I tripped sideways into it from stand-up comedy. So while I share from my own experience most of the time, if somebody needs advice, I can't say to everybody, okay, first become a stand-up comedian, do a lot of impressions, and you have the voiceover agent from one of the biggest agencies in the world say, hey, you want to try this as a sideline? They generally want to do it as the main thing they do. So the thing to do would be to take a voiceover acting workshop, look in the Learning Annex, see if anybody in your town is offering that. Certainly New York and Los Angeles and Chicago have plenty of voiceover acting workshops taught by working voiceover actors. I don't do it because I don't know how to teach. I have no idea how to impart what I do. But take a workshop. Then, if you like how you sound on tape or on playback over speakers, because most people hate the sound of their own voice, just naturally, because you can't seem to ignore the vibrations of your own skull. Everybody's own voice sounds very high to them when they hear it on playback. But if you like how you hear how you hear yourself on playback, and you know how to read copy as though it's just coming off the top of your head, well, then you make a demo. And that demo more or less exists in cyberspace on your website. And then you begin to email agents with a link, or you go and make the rounds and burn a CD of your minute of commercial, a minute of animation, and try to get meetings and leave your CD or DVD if you've got lucky enough to have any on-camera credits. And then, wait for the phone to ring. And then once that happens, go out and auditions, and don't do like Uncle Maurice. Be on time when you get the job. Don't be 5 minutes late and blame the traffic.
I was wondering before we close if you'd be willing to do a little word association game with us, where I just throw out a name of a character or show or a voice actor, and you just give us your first thought.
We can try.
Pinky and the Brain.
Taking over the world.
Jeff Harnell.
Awesomely talented.
Futurama.
You watched it. You'll never unwatch it, because they will never cancel it again.
Rob Paulson.
The most talented, sweetest guy in the entire business, and I'm not even going to try to do his voice. He's just too darn good and special.
The Dalai Lama.
Saved my life. Saved my sanity.
Andrea Romano.
Awesomely talented, and we kind of butted heads once or twice on interpretations of how to play various lines, but wouldn't have gotten my second Emmy nomination without her. And she really knows. She knows what she wants. She knows comedy, and I owe her a ton.
Orson Welles.
Oh, yes. Without him, not only would we not have the greatest film of all time, Citizen Kane, but also the greatest 2-inch lab mouse bent on taking over the world, Citizen Brain.
3 more. Frank Walker.
And he's right. And he's right in that Frozen Peas outtake tape. He's right. No way to emphasize the end of the beginning of a sentence. Go ahead.
Frank Walker.
Legend. And a mensch beyond menschiness. The best.
2 more. Trace McNeil.
Say again?
Tress McNeil.
Tress McNeil. I think you said Shaky McNeil. Okay, Tress McNeil. The most awesome woman in the business.
And last one, Maurice LaMarche.
Who?
We would like to thank Mr. LaMarche for taking the time to chat with us in this special TuneCast interview. Before we close, sir, will you give us your, there was a segment on the Looney Tunes, on the Animaniacs DVD, where Tress brought up this laugh that you do.
That's not it. That's my genuine laugh. No, this is the laugh that would drive Andrea Romano crazy. Whenever something was supposed to be funny to the characters on the show, if it was supposed to be some sort of laugh walla, and all the characters would laugh, And I got to the point where I do this just to get a rise out of her. I would almost take the Robert De Niro laugh from Cape Fear when he's sitting there smoking a cigar in the movie theater, and I would just the characters. Okay, Roger would go. Okay, everybody laugh. 3, 2, 1, and I'd just go. And everybody else is doing their good old Lou Scheimer kind of laugh at the end of the episode. And I'm going, okay, Mo, dial it back just a bit, please. And now I wonder why the woman will never work with me again.
It's actually very funny. We have a running gag on Tooncast of how many shows we cover that actually feature her as the voice director. So we have a count of every time we do a show, like we covered Animaniacs and Tiny Toons and way back in episodes 2 and 3 of the show. And it just surprises me how much stuff each time we do one that she is involved in. She's done so much stuff.
She truly has.
Yes.
All
right, sir.
She really knows her stuff.
Thank you very, very much. And let's get some parting words from Brain, and we will let you go.
My friends, it has been a deep and abiding pleasure to be interviewed by you. And when I take over the world, you shall be spared. Yes.
Narf.
Now, laugh.
Narf. Oh, God. All right, we're going to go to the outro of this little clip, and we'll be back after this.
Mortimer Mouse here, and when I'm not setting Mickey up, I like listening to Tooncast.
Okay, we're back, and not to undercut any of the other voice actors that I've interviewed, wow, was that fun.
That was an incredible experience. I didn't realize how fun that was going to be.
Oh, wow, that was so fun. And just the way that he would drop in voices every now and then. I actually did a question that I didn't even have written down, but he had mentioned something, and I had asked him, I said, wait a second, Mr. LaMarche, are you telling us that the brain is on prescription drugs or something? I don't remember. I'm so excited at this point, I can't even remember what the hell happened or what the hell we said in the last hour and a half or hour and 13 minutes or however long the interview is. But wow.
Yeah, that was just incredible.
Yes.
I don't know what else doesn't, he was so willing to not only answer questions but just not just to give like short answers. He was going in depth. He was trying to, answer every part of every question that we asked, and wow, what a nice guy, and thanks to him again for a great interview.
Yes, it is. So with that, this has been the Tooncast special interview of Maurice LaMarche, and we will see you next time here on Tooncast. Bye-bye.
I'm going to give you another Animaniacs secret, though. This is revealed for the first time publicly. Everybody always wanted to talk to me on those signing things about the burping. Everybody was always like, when you burp, you have to drink a lot of soda. And I go, well, what's really funny? I have a stunt burper. Because I did, because,
And who is it?
My stunt burper is the best in the business, and it's that gentleman right there.
That's right.
And I don't want to, Mo, I don't want to put you on the spot, and you're so well-dressed and handsome
Not
today.
at all.
But if you wouldn't mind, Mo, would you give us just a little example of the magic you used to do on my behalf?
Go to 0.
It takes a second to warm up.
Center, Mo.
Isn't that great? That's why
That is a thing of beauty.
And now, performing another classical work, the Great Wackarotti.
me. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me.